We're live. First of all, I want to apologize for the delay, but good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to The Turning Point. I also want to thank all of our friends, listeners, and supporters for helping us reach 40,000 subscribers. We just hit 40,000 last night. My brother and I were truly grateful for each and every one of you and what you guys mean to our community. We have so much to talk about today. It's hard to know where to start, but over the last 48 hours, we've seen significant downturns in the financial markets, escalating wars, more propaganda than ever to manipulate markets and the reactions and stir fear among retail investors. And retail investors naturally often act on emotion, and fear is a very powerful driver in the markets. So as we observe the economy, it's really coming to a standstill. Basically, borrowing and lending are being halted very slowly. This is gradually where this is all going eventually. The economy is just slowing down, which is going to certainly lead to societal paralysis and even anarchy eventually. Now, I'm not trying to scare you, but I think it's important that we all face the reality that the current administration and the political puppet show, they just continue to steal our wealth, impoverish us even further. And, this political puppet show, what you see happening with Camilla and Trump, it's just so blatant that it's absolutely clear. I don't think we have real, genuine representation looking out for our interests. They've never given a crap about us before. So what makes it different any now? And I think we just have to continuously take matters into our own hands, which is why we encourage you guys to support our channels and follow us, because we teach you how to capitalize and position yourself on all these everything that's just happening in the economy and what's happening in the world. So a lot to talk about. We're going to go ahead and start with Ripple's RLUSD, the stablecoin. Now, Edo and I and David, for almost 3 years now, we've been talking and telling people that a stablecoin from Ripple on the XRP ledger was coming. That vision has finally become a reality. And I think this development really ties us into the larger narrative, and it signifies that we're getting closer to the end of the monetary system, the current one, and where XRP is eventually going to dominate the global financial market. I mean, Ripple's agenda and narrative has always been to acquire, dominate, and innovate at the same time. We're seeing markets that are driven by liquidity plummeting. Dollar liquidity is falling into the ground. So there's just a lot of unsustainable debt, high interest rates, and the need for stable coins is now becoming very urgent, and liquidity. So central banks are continuously adopting this technology to monetize and even manage the debt, which means countries are not going to need the dollar eventually for liquidity. So this is where we are today. This is what we're witnessing in the world of finance. And obviously, we all know that this is just a big game, how they played it. They put fear into the markets. Markets react. M2 money supply goes up. They come back in. They buy up all the debt that you can no longer afford to hold on to. And that's why it's so crucial to understand just the bigger picture of how these events are being orchestrated. And I keep telling people that technical analysis is not going to give you the full story. There are a lot of people out there who put technical analysis. I don't follow that crap. I think educated technical analysts are going to base their insights and decisions basically what the central banks are doing. And our strategy has always been very simple. We just follow what the central banks are doing and the one percenters. And that's the approach that's consistently, I think, guided us through all the complexities that we see in the monetary system. Sorry for going so much in detail about all this. It's just, again, so much to talk about. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper. And Edo, I know you've been covering this extensively. So let's start with the Ripple stablecoin.
Well, first of all, the timing is fantastic. I think my connection is dropping a bit. Are you guys hearing me good?
Yep. Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Yeah? Okay, that's great. So first, I think the timing couldn't be at a more fundamental moment. I said this multiple times, and Versan has been covering as well a lot about stablecoins, and we know that stablecoins are the future, but stablecoins need to be backed by something tangible. And I want to get on that in a second. But recently, it has been live on Ripple's website. There is a dedicated section for RLUSD, that's how it's called, Ripple stablecoin, on the XRP ledger. And I think that has made it very clear what we have always said, that the XRP ledger is not built for day-to-day use of the average citizen, but it's actually built for enterprises. It's built for financial institutions. And I don't think this is just my opinion. It's just Ripple is making it very clear. And it's actually silencing a lot of people that were questioning us on where we get this information that the XRP ledger is actually built for enterprises. Well, I got a quote here. If you guys allow me, I'll read the quote. And this comes straight from the article. So it's actually, I watched this person that works for Ripple in the Paris Blockchain Week. His name, just to say, it's Marcus Infanger. So he's the director of Ripple X, and he has been ahead on this matter of stablecoins. And Marcus has said that the XRP ledger is built to power institutional-grade financial use cases, thanks to its proven reliability, efficiency, and roadmap of comprehensive features such as, and he quotes here, automated market makers, as the upcoming decentralized identifier, lending protocol, and native Oracle support. The XRP ledger provides a strong foundation for real-world assets tokenization and institution-grade DeFi. So he made it very clear that they use it for tokenization and it's for institutional use case. So that's not our opinion. You can verify that statement on Ripple's website. And I'm finding that very interesting, that the timing. We have a market meltdown happening in front of our eyes. Stock market is crashing. You have Warren Buffett, he's sold even his Apple stocks. And this is similar to what happened during the pandemic. So it's from the same proportions of the previous market meltdown. And we have been talking, so I don't want to get away from Ripple stablecoin. We're going to talk about that in a second. But the timing that also Evergrande liquidation is taking place in China, and in the same time that Tether is ready to go out of businesses. And I have confidential documents, which I already mentioned. I covered some days ago to talk about this. And I have very great indicators that Tether is a ticking bomb. Tether is out there because policymakers are allowing Tether to be there. But as soon as they decide Tether will run out of business, I think that's the perfect moment for Ripple stablecoin to take over. And that's also tied to what's happening in Japan. And we're going to expand on that. It's a very complex subject, but hopefully in this live streaming, we have time to cover it all. David, your thoughts?
Well, I think timing is absolutely key, like you had just mentioned there. One of the things I've always thought about Tether is like, it could be an immediate thing. It could be another shoe to drop, maybe quote unquote a black swan where Tether literally implodes. However, I've often thought that they're just going to slowly cut its market share, make it more and more difficult around the world for Tether to be even utilized, and slowly squeeze them into a position where they just become non-existent. And as one diminishes, I do believe the other one is going to come up and start eating up that market share. In the stablecoin market, you're talking billions upon billions of dollars and daily volume. What a lot of folks don't think about when they think about stablecoins is how they're used for liquidity, like Versan had mentioned. Their main use case, because of course they're pegged towards fiat currency right now. That's why they're called stablecoins, because they're stably based towards that. Now they have to be backed by various assets, and Ripple are real. I love the way Brad Garlinghouse said this: real USD. Real USD. And why real USD? Well, because we know central banks are just like printing it like absolutely insane right now. The Federal Reserve, if you were to look at all these markets, and to stay on topic with the stablecoins, but markets are crashing all over the place, except what's being happening in the debt market is truly something else, because they're buying it up like literally crazy, and you can see it happening right before your very eyes. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means the creation of new dollars, doesn't it? And when you're talking about the creation of new dollars, you're talking about the weakening of the actual currency itself. Well, in that capacity, people's confidence is just being completely diminished, and when you think about stablecoins and how they interact with major institutions in storing and moving value, it is massive, massive, massive. And how these things generate income is, of course, you know, in Ripple's case, it's going to be US backed securities and other various instruments to back it to show that, in fact, it's auditable. It can be backed. Where Tether, it seems to be a revolving door, just like the central banks. You know, it's amazing when you see the price of Bitcoin move with the creation of Tether. It's absolutely obscene. I mean, it seems to me that there seems to be some level of collusion on a government level to allow this to continue, because it is absolute, you know, it's counterfeit. To me, it's like counterfeit money. It's a revolving door. You create the Tether goes, buys up Bitcoin, raises up the price, the Bitcoin backs the Tether, on and on and on. It is crazy. And so when I think about the stablecoin market, and I do think that, you know, if they should Tether be slowly diminish their market capitalization, Ripple's USD is going to come in there, RLUSD, I absolutely believe, and just gobble up that market, you know, and it is going to be massive. And it does show the utilization of the XRP ledger in a way that it was meant to function. And I agree. A lot of people don't look at it like that. They're just, you know, retail investors. Come on. One thing I would like to point out is a lot of the exchanges, you know, right now in this market crash, a lot of these various ways that people could get on and interact with their banks and this and that with respect, interestingly enough, they shut those down, multiplicity of them, so that retail could not literally, you know, go out there and, you know, sell or whatever. But do you think that institutions are under those same, you know, restrictions? Of course not. They have over the counter. And so it's just wild. But I do believe that we are literally, like Versam was saying, at the very, very end, and we are going to be transitioned into within 12 to 18 months. I'm absolutely convinced we are going to see a transition like most people haven't even imagined. And absolutely, this is going to be big, big, big.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying so hard to like put all of this into context for people, but there's just so much shit happening at once. And what I'm trying to say is, like, this is a currency crisis. But at the same time, you're seeing that this is being obscured by many misleading narratives, but the underlying problem is the same. We're seeing nations all around the world, and that's really what happened yesterday. They're beginning to mainstream this, that they're selling off their debt. And that's because the high interest rates have made servicing the debt increasingly unmanageable. And as countries continue to face these economic disruptions because of these high interest rates, and even if the central bank lowers the interest rate, I saw people putting on Twitter that, oh, Fed now meeting, you know, that's all an illusion, ladies and gentlemen. They are going to eventually force nations into managing their own debt more effectively. Now, how are they going to do this? Well, interestingly, Japan has already indicated that they plan to use XRP by all central banks and financial institutions within, you know, the Central Bank of Japan, to use the XRP. Now, that exactly converges with what we're talking about here. The $400 billion fire sale that happened in Japan, it's not just a financial maneuver to just show people that the bond market is selling off. It's part of a broader strategy to dismantle the existing Federal Reserve system so that they'll be caught red-handed at one point. But this is designed to also pave the way for the introduction of the new monetary system, where all central banks are going to use the XRP for liquidity. And that's where the XRP stablecoin, I'm sorry, the Ripple real USDT stablecoin is going to play into all of this. And, you know, it's exemplified also by the geopolitical tensions and rising conflicts that we see in the world, what happened in with Hezbollah and Hamas and Iran. And that is, you know, it's indeed very tragic, but it's also serving as a smokescreen for the more pressing issue. And that is basically the failure of the United States Federal Reserve System. So there's just so many distractions out there that are going to redirect public focus elsewhere and, you know, continue even to stroke division and hatred amongst us. And I think that's really what underpins all of this. It's more divide and conquer strategy at the same time, while they're consolidating the wealth and still bringing out to the rest of the world, showing them that the very foundations of a new economic order is coming to fruition. So, I mean, it's just the mechanics behind everything we're seeing is very similar to, and I put a tweet out about this the other day. It didn't get a lot of attention, but interlocking cogs. The financial system is faltering, but what they do is they trigger market drops, and then they prompt central banks, like you said, to issue new debt. And that's why the M2 money supply was expanding yesterday. And it's mimicking what we saw in 2019, right before the pandemic. And what happened in the pandemic? A significant bull run because they were buying up everything. So yeah, we're seeing the same shit play out again, you know, and this is going to allow central banks to acquire assets that individuals and businesses are forced to sell because of financial strain. So problem, reaction, solution. Here we go.
Consolidation. One of the things you said, they're just a consolidation of wealth. And a lot of folks don't even recognize what that is. It's really consolidation of power. And this is a power play. This is all about control, because remember, when all of these things are selling off, if they're selling off, they're selling into some buyer, right? I mean, you're not selling into the thin air. For every sale that is going through, somebody else is on the other end eating that up. And what are they doing? They're eating up all of these assets, all of these various, when all of the assets are being consumed. Basically, all this massive sell-off, Japan, South Korea, the United States, on and on and on. Well, if it's being sold, somebody is buying it. Well, the central banks are the ones buying it, guys. I don't care what you wanted to say. There's institutions out there that are ready to go. They're printing the money on the one end, coming in on the backside, and it's the loop-de-loo that they have been playing all along, and it's a consolidation of power and wealth for a lot of the major central banks, and this is what's going on now. There's a reason they're doing that. They're doing it because they intentionally plan on moving us into a situation where the consolidation of wealth and power is in just a few hands, and they can really force a lot of circumstances around the wide world. I absolutely believe it. There's zero doubt about it. It's practically prophetic that this is happening. And the way that I see it right now is most people are literally being taken down the garden path, and you're watching a lot of these major banks just getting fatter, wealthier. Well, you are wiping out. We are going into a neo-feudalistic system. That is the goal. That's why you got the WEF coming out there saying by 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy and all this kind of nonsense. It's a destruction of the middle class. There will not be a middle class if things keep going the way that they're going, and they actually achieve their entire agenda here. There will not be a middle class. I don't believe it. They will literally decimate it. And you know what's going to happen then? We're going to beg for their solution. They're not going to have to push it on us. People will beg for it. And that's where I believe we're going. Absolutely. You're going to see a lot of this distributed ledger technology space take over in the new system. Absolutely, for sure. It is the backbone of all central bank digital currencies. They're built off of distributed ledger technology. Ripple is out there as the number one, organization out there building the infrastructure for CBDCs. And this plays and you need bridge assets. You need bridge assets to transact between these various private ledger systems. This is where I see RLUSD, XRP, and some various other, which I believe eventually they're not quite yet designated as this, but they'll become tier one assets. And at that point, it'll be the asset of choice at the end of the day. That's my absolute belief. And it's just mesmerizing when you're witnessing it and the narrative that they're using. I mean, this whole global war thing, we are already in World War III. I don't care what anyone says. We're there. And it's just a matter of, I think time. It's a matter of when they are going to do something. I really do believe that. They're marshaling us up to that and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I'm thinking about it.
I mean, very good point. Edo, I do want to get your take on this as well. But, it's just, it really upsets me just how hatred is just being redirected to another group of people. And, I don't even need to say this anymore, but I know this for a fact that the stage has been set for a very long time. And everything that's aligning right now suggests that we are at the turning point. That's why I came up with the name for this thing. I call it the turning point because every time we look at this, we are indeed at the turning point. Now, I don't like to make predictions or anything like that, but this is what I see playing out eventually. And, without going too much down the rabbit hole, and I've been there, guys, it's not easy to get back out, but you're going to see eventually a cascade of cyber attacks and possibly even terrorist attacks, black swan events in the US on the financial infrastructure. And then you're going to see bank runs occur. And as bank runs occur, you're going to see that the institutions don't have the money. They're illiquid. You're going to see some headlines by the mainstream news, of course, USD insolvency. And I really believe USD, United States dollar insolvency, is around the corner. And that's going to cause hundreds of billions of dollars of US treasuries to be dumped in a matter of hours, very similar to Operation Sandman. You're going to see bank failures and bail-ins that will shortly follow afterwards. And shortly after that, you're going to see Tether and various other stable coins in this space completely collapse because they will be deemed illiquid as well. So that was kind of tying into what you mentioned about Tether. Yes, it is a ticking time bomb for sure. And we've covered this so many times. I encourage everyone to go back to the Turning Point, to the first, second, and third episodes where we covered most of this stuff and some of the other videos. Everybody here has been really doing their part. So Edo, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take up your time over there. So I'd like to hear your thoughts.
We like to hear your stand.
Just keep going back and forth.
We have been talking extensively about Tether, so I don't think there's a point for us to go too deep into how Tether has been orchestrating this money fraud. That's how I call it. It's a counterfeit of money. Anyways, I see a lot of people concerned about the markets right now. And on the negative side, many people text me they are running out of liquidity, and that's exactly their plan. They want people to run out of liquidity so they don't have money to buy the dip. On the other hand, if you want to hear about the positive side, is that I expect this situation to actually get a bit worse before it gets better. So I'm not talking about technical analysis because as I 100% agree with Versan. I think most people on technical analysis are missing the point. Just look, honestly, guys, go on Twitter and have a look of the old predictions about Bitcoin of most mainstream technical analysts. Show me one that was correct. I can't find one. And I spend a huge portion of my day looking on posts on Twitter, and I'm telling you, they have been completely off target. They were expecting Bitcoin to hit $100,000 and trillions of dollars were liquidated in long positions. You have to understand, this is a highly manipulated market, and you have only one solution, is hold and be patient. You need to have patience and you need to have a strategy. So the way they're going to make you lose is by, I just saw someone that got liquidated in their futures account today, and this person actually ended up selling all his spot assets to actually add up to try to fix the long position, and he just got liquidated. Now he has like 0 assets to his name. So you can't do the same mistakes. And I'm telling you from perspective, in the bull run of 2019, 2020, the previous cycle, well, I was a trader myself, daily trader. I was making $1,000 per day on trading. And at some point I had a huge loss. And I was asking to myself, was it really worth it to be stressing myself and trading extensively if one huge loss was enough to actually put me on the negative? And from that day, I still do trades, don't get me wrong, but it's not my main source of revenue. So nowadays, I really rely more on holding. And okay, I am in profits from spot, then I'm going to sell it and I'm going to cash out, not in Tether, not in USDT, but actually on something more tangible like euros. Now, the whole point I'm trying to make here is that technical analysts are missing the big picture. What is the big picture? And we spoke so many times about it. And I think if you watched our last live streaming, you should go back and watch the repetition. Whenever we saw Donald Trump that walks in a convention that is more like a cult, that's what it was. It was a cult. And you see everyone on Twitter 100% bullish on Bitcoin and saying that now Trump is embracing it as a reserve asset. And I ask myself, what a great reserve asset, right? It drops 20% in a day. Okay, let's that alone, the price fluctuation. But the point I'm trying to make here is that whenever they bring the establishment and they do this massive propaganda, and that's what they have done exactly last week. And the four of us, because we had Vandel as well, we were sitting here and saying, you know, this is fishy. I think something is going to happen, because whenever they are trying to bring the masses, what they want, why they want to bring mass attention to one asset? Well, that's simple. They want liquidity, because if they have liquidity, they can cash out. If they can cash out, they can then manipulate the markets send the price lower so they can buy it back. They not only liquidate millions of positions, both on the longs and shorts, because they also have mechanisms working, automated market makers that are liquidating, are making sure that longs and shorts are liquidated. And that's even trading boots. Don't get me wrong. It's not even someone pressing a button. The game is rigged in the same
totally
way
rigged.
that gold are rigged. The financial markets are rigged. Now, is it impossible to make money? No. If you understand the game, well, you have a great possibility to generate wealth. And I have been doing this for the past years. When I finally understood that the game is rigged, how funny is that? When I finally understood that the game is rigged, some people would say, well, if the game is rigged, I'm going to sell all of my assets. No, it's quite the opposite. Once you understand, you can profit. And you have to understand.
I mean, all you got to do is follow the central banks. I mean, if you're following what the central banks are doing,
100%.
yeah, well, the central banks, go ahead. I'm so sorry, man. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
it's just they're the ones dictating the terms of the economic conditions.
100%.
That's it.
And
100%.
And with credit card delinquencies, inflation, hyperinflation is in the entire world. People unable to pay student loans debt. And all of this situation is creating a bubble where there is not enough liquidity in the markets. Well, you have seen that Germany has sent Bitcoin multiple times to the exchanges until they finally sold it because there was not enough liquidity. Some people are saying, oh, they are sending Bitcoin back and forward. What's going on? Well, there was not enough liquidity on the market. So when you have low liquidity in the markets, you have low support levels, and that's exactly what happened overnight. You can have massive drops of 15, 20%, even further, because there's not enough liquidity. So what to expect from now is the following. I'm not getting out of equation that we're going to have a substantial drop because the geopolitical tensions are arising. It's enough one small black swan event, because I said there's not enough liquidity and we can touch lower levels. So what you want to do, because this can be like a flash crash. So to not be you at 3 a.m. like taking decisions, have your buy orders on the exchange. For example, you're going to have a buy order for XRP at, just examples, not financial advice, 35 cents, 25 cents. We don't know if it's going to drop to these levels. And if these orders are executed, guess what? You are buying an asset that has real world utility.
Yeah.
Fundamentals don't change when price drops. That's why we don't trade meme coins. That's why we are invested in the fundamentals.
And one thing to think about when you think about that is you've got these exchanges that are allowing leverage trading at such amounts is absolutely insane. You know, I think I read when I was reporting my coffee chat this morning, I said it was like 1 billion. Literally by the time I had got off, new report came out, over 2 billion in 24 hours liquidated. Now, a lot of people that don't understand, you know, when we say liquidated, we're talking about people taking leverage positions on their trades, short or long, and they have to put up the security for that. They have to have that, the digital asset on the platform in order to make these trades, these leverage trades. Well, what they're doing is they're betting against the house, and the house is not going to lose. I'll tell you that right now. And in a lot of cases, when these liquidations happen, bang, that's it. They're done. They're over. Some people have literally taken years to build up their positions, and in one trade get absolutely liquidated. The whole thing is literally gone. And you don't even have to have that big a leverage. It could be just a 3x or something like that. And that will cause an absolute liquidation. And by the way, they know the targets, they see the numbers, they know how they have to go, and you can almost see it strategically happening where they're hitting various levels in order to make those liquidations. And then the thing bounces back. They get the shorts and they get the longs. And it's a totally manipulated market in that capacity. I mean, these major players, they have had their hands literally slapped. How many times? It's a cost of doing business for them. In the precious metal markets, we know manipulation has been going on for decades in the paper market. We've had JP Morgan serve a $977 million fine, something to that effect, for manipulating that market. Do you think that really bothers them when they think of the billions upon billions that they've actually made doing that manipulation? Of course they don't. And that's what we're seeing. And when you're thinking about that, I think one point to bring back to what Edo was saying there is why, when they go through it's not just about getting it on the cheap and things like that, is they are literally taking away your ability. When you have been liquidated, you have no dry powder, most cases, on the side to buy those positions back. You're out. You're basically done. And who has bought it? Well, a lot of these big players have bought it. And they've got it in there, and they're basically, again, accumulating assets in every asset class. Think about that. We're not just talking about one or two. No, they want it all. That is the bottom line. And so for what you're saying, I guess, if in terms of like, hey, if you want to set these positions and put it in there and this and that, that's one thing. But for the love of thunder, do not leverage your positions. That's my recommendation. Most people don't make it out okay. You have to be such a, even the ones that are in there doing the day trading or the minute by minute, hour by hour trading, even most of those people do not make money. I'm going to tell you right now, they don't.
I agree.
They get absolutely taken. And so you want to be strategic. You want to hold and long-term. Something Versan had said that is something we have rang out many, many, many times. It's the long-term fundamentals that are going to make the difference. Where are we going? Where is the world going in the future? I mean, we have seen it. I have lived through it. Now, look, when the internet came out, 1980s, 1990s, I was old enough, married, having children at that time. Most people looked at the internet as a novelty, and yet it revolutionized how the world even works, and banking. In fact, banking now, if you had a blackout, global blackout, internet blackout for something like even an hour or two, you'd be talking about trillions of dollars in losses, when just back then they didn't even need the internet, right? That's how dependent we have become upon it. Do you think this distributed ledger technology isn't going to make that kind of move? I think it's going to swallow the internet and everything else whole. And I think it's going to be a powerful, now think of that long term. Yeah, okay, we're dealing in the pennies right now. Do you think it's going to stay there? I don't. I personally don't. Not on your life.
And it concerns me sometimes. I look at all the narratives that are being put out, even by people on Twitter, on X, and even YouTube, and people are just not realistic about the situation we're in. And it's like we've covered this so many times, but we are trapped in a never-ending debt cycle where new debt is issued to sustain existing debt. But the problem with what people don't understand is, and like you said, leverage is there too. And delinquencies are all-time highs. People are falling into poverty faster than ever. But the cycle is unsustainable, not just for us, but also by the political leaders who continue to sell a viable solution. And I think that's where we can turn this conversation into what we see, the political reality show with Trump and Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And I really don't believe that there is any real solution to this.
There is not.
Many people in this space, I agree with you, and many people in this space, and I have spoken to people off record like you would not believe, guys. You guys know this. I talk to you off record about this all the time. So this debt jubilee, and I talked about this with Martin as well.
Yeah.
He said that it's going to happen. But remember, and again, the fundamentals, that one person's debt is somebody else's asset. So who benefits from this? And you have to ask those questions. And that's the problem in this space. Nobody is asking the right questions. And that's what pisses me off with a lot of the YouTubers out there. And this is why I have a very small circle. It's because people are not asking the right questions. If you ask those questions, you're going to understand that this debt jubilee is a trap. It's going to come at a very
not going to be free. It's not going to be free.
Right. And you mentioned this before, and you actually covered it pretty well. So I just want people to be mindful of all of this. And that's why it's so important, again, to have physical assets. If you really want freedom, it's not going to be in the system. Can you make money by investing in the infrastructure for the new technologies, the emerging economic order? Absolutely. But it's not secure, as in your transactions are going to always be seen.
Monitored.
Okay? Now, the difference between XRP and some of the other technologies, or CBDC, is that it resists institutional control as far as conducting transactions. You have that sovereignty, which is why governments are seeking this. but it doesn't limit them to seeing what you're able to transact, what you're buying, what you're selling. And I really don't understand how it's going to play out as far as is the central bank going to get involved as far as creating a public wallet where you transact on? And my point, though, is that even when you're in a system like that, if you said something like screw Joe Biden, you can get restricted from transacting. That way they can convince you not to go, not to speak your mind if you wanted to. For
What
instance,
you're talking about there is a positive and a negative reinforcement mechanism where they are literally, it's social engineering 101. That's why we're talking about a social credit score coming into the marketplace. And it is and what do you think ESG is? ESG, all that is when they're throwing that out, that is just a corporate credit, social credit score is what we're talking about there. They're utilizing a lot of these things to totally control and manipulate markets and control and manipulate behavior. I mean, you know, we see it all the time in these social media platforms where they will reward and they will and you see it, and I don't care what they want to call it, shadow banning, whatever. But I have been there where I have literally seen, views go in reverse on various subjects and things like that. And, you're like, how is that even possible? How can you get negative amount of views, right? But I've been there to see the algorithms work this out. Remember, a lot of this is being monitored through AI, and they are out there allowing and crafting a narrative, and they will suppress anything that does not agree with that narrative. And we're watching it around the wide world. You brought up something very important. Where is all this violence and this division and all this foment going on, like we're seeing in Europe right now, the UK, and on and on and on, where you're watching a narrative being targeted towards one group over another group, and it's causing such a distraction of infighting when the real enemy is the one who created the snowball, got it rolling downhill, and stepped back while the other ones eat each other alive.
Agreed.
And this is absolutely what's going on. We are not one another's enemy here. There is an enemy, that's for sure, but it is not each other. It's those that are up there behind the curtain pulling the levers and pulling the strings. And they have been the same group that have done this. Now they know dang well that they're leading us down it is impossible. Look, since the Federal Reserve came into play in 1913 till now, 98% of the purchasing power of the US dollar has been evaporated. Right. Do you know that I believe that they are literally going to take that in the negative territory, where it's going to be like 100, maybe 120% of that value is gone, something to that effect, until they absolutely squeeze the very last dollar out of the system. You take away the central bank's ability to issue even $1, it is game over. And they know that that's what's coming. They have no choice but to do this. And they got the revolving door that they have been doing this on and on and on. And the reality is, it is literally, we are going right down that spiral tube. They know it. And so as a result, what are they doing? The infrastructure is being laid. It has already been laid. For us to be in this new financial system. People think that we're literally talking conspiracy here, but how many of the things have we talked about that have come to pass?
Yeah,
literally have come to pass. And I mean, to me, it's almost like watching now. It's like watching the proverbial handwriting on the wall. But something I want to point out, Edo, you were saying earlier how we haven't seen a situation like this since last C19, right? So C19 comes in, and we see this massive, massive crash in markets worldwide. Bang, boom, boom, like that. And Versan, you picked up on it and you said, but we saw one of the biggest secular bull markets the world has ever seen. Well, that was not retail stimulus money that was raising up the market. That's hogwash. Yeah. That was institutional central bank money that were buying everything up, literally consolidating as much as they possibly could. And that's what happened. Now, Judy and I, look, we fell into it at that time because we were looking for traditional hedges and it wasn't even available. You couldn't buy gold or silver. And we ended up turning into this distributed ledger technology space. And within 13 months went from being just average so that it just literally changed our world. I believe that that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at that. This is the biggest crash since we've had since then.
And yeah, and if I may add this too, it's just that um, as all of this is playing out, and you mentioned the central bank, right? Taking away the purchasing power. You think that was an accident? Absolutely not. And what they've done is they create a situation where they can easily take away, you're seeing this gradual erosion of individual freedoms. And
Yes.
that's because the central banks can control the money supply.
Yep.
Therefore, they can influence the economic
Mhm.
conditions to which we are all subject to. And I really think that those in power have been able for a very long time to dictate the terms of all financial transactions and personal liberties, which has gotten us to where we are today.
You
Ladies
want to
and
see
gentlemen,
that?
I
Yeah.
hate to say this and I hate to be repetitious, but it's necessary. This
Yeah.
is not just about money, it's about control. And
And
I think
freedom.
freedom, control, rights. But the thing is, the less people understand about the history, the economy, the political puppet show that you see happening right now,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
easier it is for them to manipulate us. And
Yeah.
it's sad because I've said this before, that the educational standards continue to decline. And because of this, people are less informed, making the control mechanism much more effective on us. And I keep saying that we are witnessing two major
Mm.
shows. You have the one on the surface, and that's exactly what you're seeing with Trump and Kamala Harris, is political drama designed to captivate the public attention of people who do not understand what's happening underneath of
Yeah.
a far more significant and sinister agenda at play.
It's very,
And
very.
not selling fear, ladies and gentlemen. We do
Nope.
not sell fear here. I've seen a lot of people say I'm black pilling everyone. That is bullshit. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm here to educate people to understand what their ultimate goal is. It's not the preservation of democracy. It has never been. It's not about the protection of human rights. It's about the fucking concentration of wealth and power.
It's
Excuse my language,
neo-feudalism.
guys.
It's
You know,
neo-feudalism. Look, you want to talk capital controls. A lot of people think, oh, well, they're not under capital controls. How many people literally are using debit cards? How often do you carry cash in your wallet? Now, I'll tell you what, they sold us on this idea that cash is bad and it's too risky. What if you lose it? Someone steals it, da 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 da, on and on and on. That cash is bad. Well, cash they could not track your transactions with, right? So you come up with this whole debit system. Now with the debit system, interestingly enough, what limit? They put limits on your debit cards. So what are you talking about there? You're talking about capital controls, right? Because if you're out there shopping and buying something and it is beyond your limit, your point of sale limit, $3,000, whatever it is, I'm sorry, but you're not getting it. You phone your bank. I've literally been in the situation. You phone your bank, you got the money. Oh, we can't raise your point of sale. It's my own money. Why can't you raise my point of sale limit? Oh, no, it's for your own good, just in case you lose it. Oh, really? You mean like, my debit card where I have that thousands upon thousands in the bank that I can use, but you're limiting my purchasing on my debit card. Meanwhile, you issue me a credit card with a $25,000 limit on that. I could lose both pieces of plastic. It's hogwash. And what it is, it's about tracking your spending habits, about knowing what you're spending on. It's about control, control, control. Think about this. There is only now 4 to 5% of all money on deposits can be converted into cash. That's it. And
Yeah.
as we've spoken to on prior programs, in certain jurisdictions around the world, it is literally illegal to transact in cash above a certain dollar value. Now that is obscene when it's supposedly legal currency. Why? Oh, you might be committing a fraud. You have got to be kidding me. The biggest fraud that's been ever perpetrated on, the global populace has been this money fraud with the dollar system as is. It's the biggest fraud because every time that they print more and they reduce the purchasing power, they're literally stealing from us. There's no other way to say it. Because what are they doing? They're reaching in your pocket. They're destroying the very purchasing power of what you earn. So it buys less and less and less. It's an organized theft. But that's
Yeah.
what's going on. So we're like what you're saying, we are already in a capital control system. It's just going to become more oppressive. Why? Because I really believe they want neo-feudalism. Remember the feudal system was you had lords and serfs. There was no middle class. There was those that had the control and those that were subject to the control. Bottom line. And of course, you'd have different echelons of the control as you got up there in the Lord system, the way in which they did it. But that's in fact what we're going to. It seems to be that's where they want to take us. At least that's my opinion on it.
No, yeah, I think we have a crystal clear view on all of this. Edo, I'd like to get your take.
First, just send a special thanks for the audience. We have almost 4,000 people watching
Really?
live.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and I'm sure it will be thousands of people watching the repetitions, which will be, you can watch the repetition in the multiple channels that we are streaming. So I want to comment something about censorship. And I think even us here, we have to be careful with what we are saying. And I want to share a quick story that happened to me Wednesday of last week. So I also do a live streaming, which happens to be in Spanish. Person, I think you met some of my Spanish friends where we do this live streaming on TikTok. And we were in the middle of the live streaming we were talking about XRP, the whole stuff that was going on in Venezuela. And we also mentioned something about the pandemic, but not even using the words. We are very careful. And the live streaming just went down. So just like imagine we are live now and this just shuts down. And we got a message from TikTok. They ban our accounts for some days, and they also
Oh, wow.
preventing us from going live, and they delete the recording. So we
Wow.
we cannot have access to the recording of the live streaming. So they just decided like that. How crazy is that? And I'm just sharing this because I think as time passes, the situation will become more and more controlled. I think it will come to a point.
Yeah.
Even to talk about XRP will be difficult in a live streaming like this.
Yeah.
I
Thanks for
also got
sharing.
a video of mine on TikTok where I made some XRP price estimatives, and they also took down the video had when it was reaching over 150,000 views. So there is a lot of censorship, and it's funny how they are targeting, especially the digital asset XRP. And I have seen this multiple times with other content creators on YouTube that got banned for talking
Speaks
about
volumes.
XRP. Yeah.
Of course.
Speaks volumes.
Well,
About
I wanted
the
to
cash,
touch. Go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead. I'm so sorry, Edo. Please.
just
Yeah.
about the cash. I think in Europe the situation is also running out of control. We have spoken multiple times here. That's now the European Central Bank considers you a criminal if you do purchases above $1,000, 1,000 euros in cash. And Christine Lagarde has openly said that.
It's ironic
course,
because that's criminal.
Yeah,
Of
that's
course,
criminal.
we can still bypass this in many instances. But well, when I went to Paris a couple of months ago, I couldn't already pay for my hotel. It was not even a large amount. I think something like 500 euros, and I was not allowed to pay by cash. They had on the website. I tried to pay by cash, and they said when you actually booked a reservation, you agreed that you cannot pay by cash. And I said I never agree with that. And they told me to go look on the reservation. So there was very small letters. And
Yeah, of
indeed,
course.
they have said, we don't accept payments in cash over 150 euros, not even
Well, and
1,000
probably a
euros.
one night, but that probably doesn't even cover one night's room.
No, because
Correct.
in Paris now they also have an extra look the craziness of the situation. Not only you pay for your room, but they also implemented a a tax that goes per night per person. So it's around 20 euros per person per night. So if you are a family of 5, it's 100 euros in taxes per night. So if you
Yeah.
go 5 days and you are around 4 people, that's going to cost you 400 euros for some
Yeah.
tax. That it's ridiculous.
And if they wanted to cut you
anyways,
out of the financial system, they could literally just close down your credit cards, your debit cards, all your access, and all of a sudden you're cut off.
I mean, they've
Completely.
already done that. That's what happened in Canada. So that's just a
Yes.
show of force that they can accomplish this if they want to. But this time it's going to be different because you're going to have all the central banks,
Doing it at
all the
one time.
governments colluding together.
Yeah.
And this is, again, designed to do the political reform to get
Yep.
to a new kind of government. We won't even get into that in this
Yeah,
conversation.
well,
but
remember,
one thing-
Basel III was set up by 28 central banks from around the wide world.
yeah,
and
yeah, that's even there.
If
Yeah.
you guys, when I was in the Paris Blockchain Week, and I do recommend you guys to go there because there's a lot of things going on. I got to meet someone, and they present me a vision of what's gonna be like a CBDC wallet. Okay, and that's very interesting. So if you want to visualize that, and they had the model ready there. I will not say the name of the company for the sake of their privacy. But imagine Shaman wallet. The previous, it was called Zoom wallet, okay? And you have a very friendly interface for Zoom wallet, okay, where you have your built, let's say built on the top of the XRP ledger. You have the users will not know they are using XRP. It might be a layer 2 anyways. And you have all this interface, which is very friendly. Imagine that your grandparents are able to use Zoom wallet, how it works today, but with an interface that gives you access to insurance, healthcare services, you're traveling, and all at once on this platform. So basically, you're going to have this universal account that is going to be linked to every single one of your financial liabilities, let's say your mortgage, your everything in one. And from there, it's everything. It might be even automatically executed and deducted from your wallet. And that's how far the things are going. And I have seen this, it already exists. The model is already there. I have seen with my, I took the phone in the hands and I saw it. And it's just, I got this moment that I was thinking, oh my goodness, that's the direction we are going.
If I can make some comments. First of all, I'm so tired. I didn't get any sleep yesterday. I was researching this until like 4 a.m. Number one, the censorship thing. That's very important to touch on, and I'll keep it short, guys. It's just artificial intelligence, quantum computers, and blockchain is pretty much the technology that's going to be used as the gatekeepers to the devices of the future. And those who are possibly even being vaccinated, I'm not going to get too much into that. I've heard some really wild theories out there, but that's going to be used to control pretty much every aspect of our lives. I put a tweet out about this. I would love people to support that because that's an important message. But again, this is why you want to have emergency supplies. You want to be positioned outside the system, because I promise you, when the time comes, I don't care how they sell it, self-sufficiency is going to be real power at that time. Another thing is, what was I going to talk about? I'm sorry, guys, I'm losing. Yeah, you mentioned something, David, about the two-tier feudal system, right? And I just wanted to touch on that. Because I get this question quite often, right? People say, oh, Versan, you say it's centralized, and then you're going to decentralize and go back and forth. You have to understand there's going to be a balance between decentralization and centralized finance. And that's likely going to involve the hybrid systems. You ever seen those hybrid blockchains out there? Right.
Yeah.
So you're going to have central banks and financial institutions integrate blockchain technologies that are hybrid to, of course, improve the efficiency and transparency between themselves, right? While still maintaining control over the monetary policies that are being implemented. So you're going to have decentralized protocols like XRP to facilitate interoperability between different nations and their digital currencies. That's pretty much how it's going to play out. And that's basically going to ensure the interoperability and the seamlessness between the financial system, okay?
And Bank of International Settlements is working on that right now.
That's correct. Yes, yes. And that's what Enbridge also is all about. There's going to be that two-tier system, right? Pretty much. But the hybrid approach allows for some benefits of decentralization as far as reducing costs, increased transparency amongst them in that system. But then there's the other system that's being built as well. And that's where pretty much they can restrict your transactions and what you can and cannot do with your money, where you can and cannot go. So I just want people to be mindful of that.
It's an excellent observation. And if you want to equate this to something that people can really see visually, you go out and you fly commercially. Well, you go fly commercially and you're subject to all kinds of invasions of privacy to the point where they can x-ray your body, when you go through the body scans and all that. Okay. Now that's, flying commercially. It doesn't matter what class you fly, whether it's, economy, basic economy, business, first class, whatever. You're flying commercial. Try charter flights, because I've flown charter flights. You book a charter flight, you're not subject to any of that. None of it. And you can literally go. So is that not a class system? Because of course, charter flights are going to cost some big bucks, right? In comparison to the commercial side. And they have an infrastructure that will manage both of those systems. And there are people flying around the world in their private jets and charter jets and all that are not subject to the same restrictions and inspections and on scrutiny that most folks are flying commercially.
Yeah.
And how quickly did we acquiesce to that after 9/11? I remember when those scanning machines first came out, and the outcry was crazy. Now most people, not an issue whatsoever. I
True.
mean, that's phenomenal. So when you're talking about a two-tiered system with a hybrid system, I absolutely 100% agree. They're going to have a system for those and a system for us,
That's right. Yeah.
and that's just the way it is.
And last thing I'll touch on as far as the lawsuit. I know I don't cover the lawsuit as much as I used to before.
Mm-hmm.
And there's reasons for this. First of all, I've covered everything there is about the lawsuit, right?
Yeah.
And if you understand this from a bigger picture, you look at what's happening in the world today. And, to the audience, like everything you see happening is falling exactly into place as we described with the geopolitical shift we're already seeing in the world today. It just continuously reflects on the broader narrative of the direction central banks have always wanted to go to. And that's digital currencies and blockchain technology, which of course explains the relationships with Ripple, positioning XRP as a key player in all of this. But my point though is that regarding the lawsuit, Ripple and the digital asset XRP has become too significant, too important, too big for even the SEC. Therefore, a settlement is, first of all, unnecessary, doesn't mean shit, and yet inevitable at the same time. Everything is just falling into place. So I don't even talk about the lawsuit anymore. You guys know it's a smokescreen, right?
Well,
so
you don't
exactly.
you don't even need it to see price appreciation. If you're talking
filter
about
out the noise. That's what I do.
If people are just looking for price appreciation on XRP, look, last go around, the lawsuit was filed in December of 2020. And of course, it was no certainty whatsoever as to which way it was going to go. XRP still did a 1,200%, return in that last run, even though it was delisted from all those exchanges and had this, freshly minted SEC lawsuit on it. I actually don't believe at the end of the day that the lawsuit, look, if they're going to move it, it's going to move. It's just, that's the way I look at it. Do I think a resolution is coming? Absolutely, I do. Do I think, it's going to have, I already think that it's already set out. If you want to, I really believe the decisions have already been made. And that's just how I look at it. Now, I know this is kind of crazy, but it would not surprise me if we found out there was that Ripple, SEC, the court, who, the whole thing seems to be like, it would not surprise me to find out that there was involvement at all levels anyway. It really, I know that sounds a little conspiratorial, but no, that's how I think about it. I think, I think a decision's been made. There's been a design at work for a long, long time. And it's just a matter of it all playing out.
It's a catalyst to accelerate the adoption of the distributed ledger technology, which is what they're after. And interestingly, the IMF even said that blockchain technologies could help mitigate bubbles in the debt and crypto markets. Interesting. Well, I think that's what XRP is going to do.
Yeah. And I think Bitcoin was the entry drug.
Of course. Yeah. And I had a really good discussion with Martin Armstrong. If you guys haven't watched, I encourage you to. Yeah. It's probably the best interview I've done in a long time. I had such an insightful conversation on and off record. Told me some crazy stuff, but we're going to be doing a part 2 very soon. So
yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, it was good information. I think you're right on point, with what you're going through. I just think a lot of times it's hard for them to really digest. Because isn't it true that like there's just so much going on at one time?
Yeah.
When you think about it, but how they're all interconnected with one another is truly phenomenal. This whole Israel and Iran type of conflict that's going on over there. Yeah.
It hurts my feelings when I see what's happening in the Middle East because, many of the listeners know I'm from there. And I can promise you America and the rest of the world has a very, very distorted view on what they really believe out there, what the people want there. They want nothing more than what we want. They want peace. They want prosperity. They want compassion. The whole stuff you see about Islam extremists, you see how they keep putting the word Islam, Muslims. That's hatred. They're trying to build the narrative by putting that narrative out there. But I can promise you one thing. That's not what they want. I grew up in that country. I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. I lived in Dubai. People are not like that. They don't condone violence. They condone peace. That's
Most
it.
people want the same thing. They want to
America
have a
has twisted
family.
it. Yeah,
They
and the
want to have
CIA was
joy.
behind
Yeah,
that too.
exactly.
So
Well, I mean, we have been sold. I mean, I remember back in the 70s and 80s and all that, it was always, remember we had Red Dawn and all those kind of movies coming out at that time, and the fear that was, I mean, remember the Rambo movies and all the build up for, the Cold War and all that. Well, once the Cold War ended, all that propaganda ended with it. So it's like, there's a propaganda machine that's going out there. A lot of people are swallowing those pills. They're not making up their own mind. They're believing what they're absolutely fed. And as a result, we've lost critical thinking. I bring this up in my coffee chat all the time. When we lose the ability to debate, where it's not even welcome, like Etta was talking about there about his, Instagram live stream being shut down midstream. And on and on and on. Well, when you take that away, you are literally strangleholding people's liberty right there. Because why? You're losing the ability to critically think. It's not allowed. That right there tells you how much that speaks volumes about the mechanisms of control that they want to implement, because they're not even allowing us to have freedom of thought, let alone freedom of action. That's for sure. That's
yeah. I think also we should leave this on a positive note. At least we'll try to. I'm a very positive person. People think I'm doom and gloom. I am nothing like that. You have no idea who I am then.
He's a good
But
guy.
I can tell you in the next 6 months, I personally expect, of course, further distortion of asset prices, further consolidation. That's the bad stuff we kind of talked about. But we're going to see continued growth in this innovation in the DeFi and Web3 space. You're going to see more regulations. Regulatory clarity is going to start to form, and that's going to lead to more increased institutional participation. Like David said earlier, retail markets the retail does not move the markets. It's the institutional. So when you see the regulation, institutional participation will shortly follow. You're going to see more integration of traditional financial systems, what we have today, what's broken, bridging with the new DeFi protocols that are being put into place. And that's going to enhance pretty much everything and your ability to make money in this space. So I just see significant advancements in interoperability and scalability, which will eventually emerge. And Solana is not it. I saw someone put that in the tweet there earlier. That's a joke. I'm sorry. They got caught also funneling money into Ukraine. They just didn't collapse like FTX did because they covered their tracks pretty well. And no one caught on to it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I
think as a final thought, I would say this, just, for folks out there, don't allow your emotions to be too swayed in any one direction. I think that's so vitally important, because that's the whole focus of a lot of what's happening, and the narrative gets thrown out there is to cause us to react emotionally. Number one, towards one another. Like from a real faith-based thing. We're supposed to be our brother's keeper. We're out there to look out for one another, not to, make enemies of each other. I think that's so vitally important. Regardless what these politicians and all these supposed leaders are saying around the wide world, we don't have to follow that narrative. Use your own critical thinking and think about that. I think number two, it behooves us to kind of like take the temperature and really do go out there and try to, prepare ourselves for any eventuality. Should we get locked out of our bank accounts, things like that, having other means of consideration, whether that be precious metals or whatever, having a little extra on the side, food and the various things that we use, that makes very common sense. Get yourself mentally, spiritually prepared. Don't allow yourself to fall into the anxiety trap where you're just paralyzed by, fear, right? That's how they manipulate us. The markets are manipulated by fear. And we just want to kind of take ourselves out of that equation. And this is where just making sure that you're centered, you have a good constitution, and you allow peace to kind of reign in your life, then it's not so much a reaction to circumstances, right? That's the only thing we have control of. We can't control what happens out there in the wide world, but we can bring ourselves to a place where we're able to control how we react to it, at least. And so I think that, and when it comes to your investments, don't make any decisions based on fear. just don't do that. Don't let yourself get sucked into FOMO, and don't get fudded out, with that fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Just kind of be level, look down the road, and take it moment by moment. If you can't do a day at a time, take it a moment at a time. That's what I'd encourage.
Beautifully said, David. And you are our spiritual advisor now.
I just
Edo, I'm sorry if I hijacked the conversation, man, but I want to hear Edo as well, man. I love listening to Edo talk. We need to do a phone call later.
Very aligned with David. I think it's the time to have patience. It's the time to when you are very stressed, you can't see things clearly. So I think the first thing, you need to relax. If you guys are able, take a flight, come to Greece, go to some Greek islands, spend some time at the sea, and you see that the stress levels, they're going to drop. But I think most fundamentally, well, if you can't do that, you should actually have a plan. And when you have a solid plan, you don't have to worry about price fluctuations. You have your buy orders, you have your stop losses if that's the case. And most importantly, as things are accelerating, and I think I had this insight yesterday. For some minutes, I was thinking, holy cow, the things are actually accelerating and happening actually a bit faster than I was expecting. So with all this uncertainty in the markets, with all this stock market collapsing situation, low liquidity, we are just one small black swan event for something very bad to happen in the market. So first, you don't want to have any stable coins like Tether. In my opinion, you should, if you have money in exchanges, because I know you shouldn't, but being practical, I do have some cash because I trade in some exchanges. So I have my, if I have on the exchanges, I will not have USDT. I'll have in euros, in Swiss francs, or anything that's more stable than stable coins like Tether, because Tether can go down. I'm telling you guys, I wouldn't be talking extensively about Tether. It can lose its peg. And not only Tether, by the way. So the second thing eventually. Don't leave the majority of your investments in exchanges. And I will say this many times. If you have some funds, it's okay. In my case, yes, I have 10 to 20% of my entire portfolio is on exchanges. If tomorrow there is a collapse and it goes to zero, I'm not affected as much. I will sleep just fine in the night because I know I have my digital assets in multiple cold wallets. Not in one, but I have in many cold wallets, and they are safeguarded. I have all the necessary measurements to ensure there's the safety of my digital assets. So you want to have your digital assets protected. You don't want to rely on exchanges, and you don't want to hold the majority of your funds in stable coins that are not tied to anything tangible. That being said, I want to send a special thanks for over 4,000 people, and it's still going on. I'm sure if we keep the live streaming going, we would hit 5,000-6,000 people. That's a lot of people. And we know that a lot are going to watch the repetition. So thank you, everyone, for your kindness. I think the best is yet to come. And I am sure it's coming faster than even we were initially thinking, because things are accelerating quickly.
Very nice. I hope I can leave you guys with a positive message as well. Just be mindful of everything we've talked about. Do your own research. Keep your digital assets offline. You don't want to be vulnerable to cyber threats, whatever. Also, as far as investments, check out Caspa. I think I mentioned this a few times. They have real fundamentals, and it can actually play a small role in, I would say, the short term if you're looking to like get a return on your investments. Sorry, guys, I'm like half asleep still. So, okay, we'll talk next week. And thank you guys for all your support, and of course, helping us get to 40,000 subscribers. I hope we can grow faster. That'd be nice. And yeah, we'll see you next week. All right. Great chat.
Just a last message. Don't send your funds to fake accounts, guys. It's every time fake accounts of ours on Twitter, on YouTube, they will answer to the comments like, Edo answered you. It's not true. Please verify it and don't send your funds. If they promise crazy returns, it doesn't exist. You're going to send 1,000 XRP and in 24 hours, you're going to have 2,000. That's just a fraud. So please don't fall for
Yeah.
scams. 99% of the times is a scam, so please be aware of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. We'll talk later, all right? Thank you
You
again
bet.
to the audience. Everyone have a wonderful day or a wonderful evening, all right? Good night.
Good night.
Say good night.
Good night.